Alleluia. Om Mani Padme Om. Allah Satnam.
Welcome. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking to Bhakta Dasa, who's a Vaishnava Hindu Minister of Religion and the Communication Director for the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, otherwise known as the Hare Krishna movement. Hare Krishna movement, that's been around for 60 years, unless I missed my guess.
No, 50.
50?
Yeah, let's not
50,
go
no extra 10 years there. Tell us about your 50th anniversary then.
50th anniversary is going to be celebrated in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
That means that for the last 50 years we've been singing and dancing in the streets and distributing food. We're actually known generally throughout the world as the kitchen religion because we have such delicious vegetarian foodstuffs that we offer through our temples, through our restaurants, through our Food for Life program.
Yes.
So 50 years, it's a long time.
It is a long time.
And you know, our founder, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada to us, he founded this in New York City, and then from there it just spread.
Okay, so it started in New York City.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was right with the flower power and all the rest
Exactly.
of it.
He was in Haight-Ashbury and in San Francisco and also in New York. And it was at that time, he came to America on the instructions of his spiritual master. His spiritual master had told him that if ever you get an opportunity, print this Vedic knowledge in the Western languages and go to the West to preach, because they need this information. So at 69 years of age, nearly 70, with the equivalent of $5 in his pocket and a box full of his Bhagavatam translations, he got a free passage on a big cargo boat. He had several heart attacks on the way over, and he landed in Boston, and then from there he travelled to New York. And for a year he lived in the Bowery in New York, with where the drug addicts and everything were. And slowly, because of that hippie culture and the young people were looking for something alternative and psychedelic and far out, so he cultivated them to take up Krishna consciousness. And then from there it grew, and then he went to San Francisco. From San Francisco he encouraged his devotees to go to London. From London, that's when the main break happened, because people became interested because of the whole flower power thing, and in particular the Beatles, who at that stage were interested in meditation and who also did TM with Maharishi. They became interested in Prabhupada's teachings.
Okay.
And then they expanded it. And in particular George Harrison, when he had his song My Sweet Lord.
Yes.
And then the Maha Mantra, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, was spread all over the world, and there was number one in so many different countries.
It was, yeah.
And then there was no stopping it.
No.
We just grew and grew and grew.
And continue to grow.
Yeah, there's now, around the world, there's about 400 different temples all over the world. It's huge in India. It's a mainstay spiritual movement in India. We also are in China, the Eastern Bloc countries, you know, what used to be the Soviet Union, all the Eastern countries there, they're now taking to Krishna consciousness like you wouldn't believe. It's absolutely amazing.
What does it look like in Australia? Like, when did it come here? When did it?
Well, it would have been around about 1969, I think, from memory, was that when it was introduced in Sydney. And then again, there was also that whole New Age and spiritual revivement and hippie sort of culture, and they took to it also, and so then it spread to every state in Australia.
So at the present time, from a nationwide perspective, what's it look like, just roughly, with the temples and the level of interest? Are they equal? It's
it's quite amazing how many people As far as initiated devotees are concerned, I would say within Melbourne we would have maybe around about 2,000 initiated devotees. That means fully committed devotees. The broader community would span out to around about maybe 6,000 to 10,000 people. That's in Melbourne alone.
Yes.
And it's increasing. Then you have the fringe people that are interested in Krishna consciousness, like say, for example, a lot of the Indian diaspora that would be interested, and they would visit the temple just to worship Krishna and the deities at the different temples. So.
Yeah, and that being part of their historic culture, that's going to only get bigger rather than smaller, as you say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A major direction that we're taking also is to support and help Indian students, and that's why the Victorian government is especially interested in supporting us, because the Indian students come here and they've left their culture behind.
Yes.
And it's very, very difficult for them. So the only place where they can sort of feel that little remnants of that Vedic culture is at our temples, and they have the food that they can relate to, and the chanting that they can relate to, and it's a place for meeting as well. So if you go to a temple in the evening, there's literally hundreds of these young men and women that are students studying IT and studying in different universities. They come there to communicate and celebrate together.
Oh, that's a very important role to play. So the 50 years, and what's going to happen is we're going to have thousands of people dancing through the streets.
Well, that'd be terrific.
What have you got planned?
I can't see that happening necessarily, but we will eventually become more influential within government circles, within interfaith circles, and so on and so forth. The teachings of Krishna consciousness are so profound and so easy to understand and so fulfilling in one's life that if you come in contact with this knowledge, with this teachings, it makes a fundamental change in your life. And it's not sectarian, it's not that you have to be a Hindu per se to follow this tradition.
No.
It's simply the process of loving God. What Vaishnav Hinduism is called Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti means love. And so it's the yoga of love, of learning how to love God. The fundamental principles of Krishna consciousness is that God is a person. Like you and I are a person, and we have to relate in a loving way between us. I've just got to know you, Norm, and there's a friendship already, because you're a person, I'm a person.
Now, I've got to be loving, and so we're running out of time. We'll be back
Fair enough.
We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking to Bhakta Dasa, who's a Hare Krishna priest. Bhakta, I don't want to spring this on you, but the internet is a wonderful thing, and I've got some sermons from you, but I just wondered if I might be able to just put some of the more key points to you as to, and you might elucidate some of them. This particular one, one should be more serious about seeking the mercy of the devotee than that of the Lord directly. Now that's a bit obscure to me. What's that about?
Okay, that's a really interesting point. You did your research very well, I have to say, Norm. You've really researched. When I gave that lecture, from the scriptures, from the Vedic scriptures, we understand that the Lord, God, actually loves his devotees so much, to the extent that if we render service to his devotees, he's more pleased than if we render service to him directly. So to serve his servant, that's why my name, I was very fortunate to get the name Bhakta Dasa.
Yes.
Bhakta means one who serves God. Das means servant.
Okay.
So there's an aphorism in Hindu culture, in Vedic culture, in Vaishnava culture, that one is dasu dasanu dasa. You are the servant of the servant of the servant of God.
Right.
So instead of going right to the top, in a humble way, to develop your humility, You serve that servant of God. And then God sees that, oh, you are serving my servant, that's even more dear to me than if you were serving me. So it's a question of humility.
It is, and isn't that an interesting parallel with some of the stories in the Bible as well, about washing feet and stuff like that?
Exactly. When Jesus humbly washed the feet of these disciples.
Right. Yeah. Unless you wash my feet, you can't be there.
Yeah.
That's those parallels between the religions are just amazing. And I'll just pull a couple out of here, because this encourages us to get a little bit more of the philosophy. And this is in July 2013. The life of a person should be moulded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life, and that is the highest perfection of life.
Exactly. It is the same teachings over and over again that all the great sages have taught. And again, I come back to that point of Jesus. Love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. So your everyday activity, everything that you do, should be geared towards service to God. Understanding that God is the creator of everything, that not a blade of grass moves without the will of God. When we can see God in everything and in everyone, and that our life is simply one of service to Him and to everyone, then what happens is you become God conscious, Krishna conscious. And so thereby our society is called the International Society for Krishna God Consciousness. So a devotee, from the moment they wake up in the morning to the time they put their head on the pillow at night time, they are trying to the best of their ability to remember God at all instances. Whether they're going to a factory to work, whether they go to an office to work. You know, so often we have this thing, I'm working for the man. Well, you're not. You're actually working for God. If you can channel some of the funds that you've earned for your livelihood and give it to a bona fide religion, spiritual path, then you are working for God, not for the man.
That's right.
You know, this is the attitude that one should have.
Well, you talk about the day in the life of a Hare Krishna devotee. What does that look like?
Good. Okay, we start our day at about 4:30 in the morning. That's pretty early for some people.
It is.
4:30 we have our first service. And this is a glorification of the deities. At every temple we have beautiful deities, statues that are an incarnation, in a sense, of God personified for us to worship. So we have an arti ceremony. It's called an arti. It's an offering of the items of the world, whether that be flame, flowers, incense, so on and so forth. We offer them back to God, understanding that everything comes from Him. So at 4:30 we do that. After that we chant our rounds, we meditate, and we meditate on our beads, which I explained to you before. It's like a rosary. This is our beads. So there's 108 beads.
Right.
And on each bead we chant the holy name of Krishna, the holy name of God, which is the process for this age. The calling on God's name is the meditative process for this age. Whatever religion, call on God's name. If you check in the Psalms, the New Testament, the Quran, the Torah, everything, even the Buddhist scriptures, will tell you that the way to advance is to call on God's name.
Absolutely.
So we chant on these beads. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and another one. So
is that silently or
audible,
as a chant?
Loud.
Yes, right.
The fact that it's loud, you can do it soft, you can do it loud, you can do it in a singing way, you can do it. But the calling of the name of God is the most important.
Right.
But this calling of the name on mantras, it engages all your senses.
Right.
Your fingers are tactile, your hearing, and so on and so forth.
Right. Yes.
So it's a concentration. So a devotee makes a commitment to chant as much as they can. If they're an initiated devotee, they chant 16 of those rosaries a day. So that takes around about 2 hours, hour and a half if you're a little faster, 2 hours. After that, we have another service where we glorify our teacher, Srila Prabhupada, and the disciplic succession. Those that have taken, because Prabhupada is no longer on the planet, he died in 1977, And his successors, which are young men and women, well, they're not so young anymore, have taken over the role of leadership.
That's right, yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a glorifying them, and then we go out to work.
Right.
Either you have a job or you work as at our restaurants, or if you're a monastic, you'll go and distribute books like that or food like that.
So it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So,
It's a commitment.
And that's every day.
Every day, well,
Yeah.
wherever it's possible. Say, for example, if you're living close to a temple, then you can attend the morning program at 4:30. If you're living in an outer suburbs, let's say you do it at home. And
We might actually do it at home because we're actually out of time.
okay,
All right. We'll be back in a moment.
Mani Allah. Alleluia. Mani Allah.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bhakta Dasa. He's a Hare Krishna priest. And we're talking about something we mentioned earlier. This is your 50-year anniversary. Now, there's got to be lots of things happening.
oh yeah.
And it's the whole year?
Yeah, the whole year.
Yeah,
We're celebrating for the whole year.
And so what's it start at? What does it start as?
Well, it'll be at the start of 2016. We're actually doing a booklet which commemorates the 50 years celebration, which will be distributed all over the world in various languages. But every festival that we have during the year, we have one large festival that's linked in with the St Kilda festival here. It's called
yes.
Rath Yatra. We'll be celebrating that as the 50th anniversary Rath Yatra. And then Janmashtami, which is Krishna's birthday, same thing again. So all through the year
Right.
will be, and then of course on the actual day of the signing that we came into existence, that'll be a big festival as well.
Are you going to have any sort of conferences or meetings like that?
Yeah, we're wanting to have academia become involved and have conferences with them as well, internationally also. There are many scholars that are actually going to be contributing to various conferences, analysing what has been done over the last 50 years and how the movement has grown and how it will grow. And also its links with the Vedic roots and with the Hindu diaspora, the Hindu community as such.
Is there likely to be a publication, so like somebody writing not a thesis, but writing a whole history for
Yes.
you? That'll come out?
That's definitely happening. We're also producing a documentary, which will be screened either on Channel 31 or perhaps SBS or something like that, which again documents our growth over that period of time.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and we have a very, very professional camera filmmaker that's going to be doing
Going
that.
to be doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's bringing everything together because it's an international movement. It could be quite. It'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we're here in Australia. We're actually organising that international magazine and trying to fit everything in that we've done over the last 50 years. The good things and also sometimes not so good things, which we had to learn because we're a young movement.
Very.
There've been mistakes that we've made, but we've learned from those mistakes and we know which way to go from now on. We're not a sort of a movement that will stay with something that's not working. If we need to change something, we will change something for the benefit of its growth and for the benefit of the community.
Yeah, that raises. You mentioned about where you started and that you were started by. Now, at the passing of the founder, where did the energy and the growth come from? Was there a sort of an organisation set up before he passed? Or?
There was indeed.
Yeah.
And that structure was sort of put in place under his direction, but we found some different faults in that system.
Right.
Not from what the founder Acharya wanted to set up, but more in the human frailties of some of the leaders at that time. Which happens with any sort of organisation once the founder, the pinnacle, has left
Yeah.
then there's a state of confusion. You know, when Jesus left, the apostles just stayed in the room and waited to be enlightened.
That's right.
So in the same token, it took a couple of years to actually get it right. There were issues that we had to deal with. And some of the men that were appointed as leaders, although they did a lot of good work, they had human frailties,
Yes.
like we all do.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
that position of leadership was too much for them. And so they fell away. And so now we had to regulate. Because if somebody is adoring you and idolizing you, it can go to your head.
Yes.
And so it did. It went to some of these young men that couldn't take that.
They couldn't handle it.
And so we had to grow. And so with adjustments, we now have a guru system, a teacher system, a mentor system that works.
Right.
And people are comfortably coming to the movement and learning how to connect with this movement through their teachers.
Yeah. Yes, the mentoring part of it was the bit that I thought, well, how would it go? But obviously it's gone very well. It's grown into what you're doing here today.
Now, but there have been problems. And we don't shirk away from that.
No.
That's a fact, you know, and we've learnt from it. And from that learning process, like say, for example, for a long period of time, we were, in a sense, harassing people to take our literature.
Yes. Yeah.
And that wasn't right always with people.
No.
So we tapered that down. We worked out a strategy where we can still present the books and the literature to the public, but in a way that's more acceptable to them. That it's not forced. We don't need to push. If a person would like some of our literature, by all means, take it.
Yeah, that's a real maturation, and so yes. So after 50 years, there's been a lot of.
It was interesting. I have to tell you this story. This was so interesting. I was in an interfaith setting. I was with the Archbishop here in Melbourne, and he said, "Oh, so Bhakta, you're with the Hare Krishna movement." He said, "You know, I watch your movement every day out of my window because it overlooks Swanson Street," and he said, "The enthusiasm which your young men and women distribute the scriptures," he said, "I wish my congregation would have a little bit of that enthusiasm to spread the gospel." And I said, "Yep, you've got it."
Yes, that's fascinating. I know. I think the spreading of those scriptures, it's all by action, isn't it? It's actions speak louder than words.
Example.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
You know, you have to live a spiritual life. You have to know the scriptures, and then you can present it. It's like if you went to a movie, right? And the movie was a blockbuster. You saw it and you thought, wow, this is just the best movie I've ever seen. The first thing that you want to do is pass it on to someone else. Norm, have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
That was fantastic. So it is with spiritual life.
Yeah.
These people are so enthusiastic about their spiritual life that they want to pass it on to someone else.
Yes.
They want to give this pleasure, this spiritual bliss to someone else.
Yeah.
Because it is the ultimate. There's nothing like it. There's nothing compared to it. And with that spiritual bliss, a young person is able to become totally vegetarian. No meat, fish or eggs. Is able to not gamble, not take intoxications, and not have illicit sex.
Now that's a roundup of things that a lot of people would wrongly value. We're out of time.
That's okay.
But what I would like to really thank you so much for a series of 3 interviews, because it's been so illuminating. And thank you once again.
It was
Bhakti.
wonderful talking to you, Norm, and I appreciate the opportunity you've given me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
You've been watching Harmony and Diversity. We'll be back next week. So bye for now.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu